Our time together today and tomorrow will include lecture, videos, perceptual games for people, I told you that, experiments with dogs if we can drum up some dogs, discussion, and I want some of the advanced stuff mixed in throughout. So for the advanced trainers in here, I think sometimes what happens is you say, I will sit through all the repeat stuff in the beginning and the advanced topics, the new stuff will be at the end. I want to keep you awake and interested, so I'm going to mix them in. Which means we're going to sort of vacillate between introductory basic stuff. Oh, here's an interesting new tidbit thrown in, back to the basic stuff. No, you'll either find that interesting or quite crazy. My blessing is to know the world's best trainers. That's like my greatest resource is I know great trainers. So many have contributed video and information for this weekend. So when I share some of my colleagues' information with you, it's with their permission and with their brilliance added to our learning. Let's go through the way to explain the grid most clearly, in my mind. The grid is important for practical day-to-day trainers. Here's the entryway into the grid. I'm going to give you 4 pairs of words that describe a particular consequence. And let's just understand each dichotomy separately, then let's put them together. So again, we're going to go through these fast. Let's review for most of you. Consequences can be either reinforcements or punishments. And in the time that we've got this morning before lunch, let's keep this as simple as it can be. It's not actually that simple. Reinforcements make behavior stronger. We're going to talk more about reinforcement. That's what this 2 days is about. In general, a consequence that's a reinforcer makes the preceding behavior stronger, or it at least maintains the behavior. Sometimes it doesn't make the behavior stronger, but it at least maintains that behavior, keeps it in the animal's repertoire. Or a consequence can be a punisher. And the most common definition of punishment is it makes the preceding behavior weaker. When we're talking about stronger or weaker, we're typically talking about frequency, duration, or intensity. So the example I often use, some of you have heard this, if this were the behavior, bark, bark, and we made it stronger, we did a procedure that made it stronger. Today, Thursday, this is the behavior, bark. Monday, if I've spent time reinforcing it, the bark would either sound like bark, louder, bark, 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 more frequent, or bark, longer duration. Louder, longer duration, more frequent, or all of them together. Bark, 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 bark. Duration, intensity, frequency tend to be the dimensions we make behavior stronger. There's lots more. That's a graduate course. It's not today. Making behaviors weaker are on those same dimensions. Less frequent, less intense, less long. So I talked earlier about unconditioned reinforcers versus conditioned. It was one of those pairs of words that were in the list about consequences. Let's talk about now innate reinforcers versus learned. Just different words for what I already said to you. So all of those are synonymous. Innate, primary, unconditioned, natural. These are the reinforcers that are inherently reinforcing because they satisfy a biological need. These are the ones with evolutionary significance. You were born understanding these reinforcers. No one taught you to like food. There's a picture of a hot dog. I love this picture. I don't know if you can see, this is a friend of mine who works at the aquarium in Quebec. And these are 2 baby walruses. And I don't know if you can see, it's probably a little hard to tell. Here's Chantal, she's the vet. And here's one walrus and another walrus sitting in her lap. And walruses and sea lions have this, what would be the right word? This tendency to be thigmotactic. I love that word. Thigmotactic means I want to be touching you. I want to sleep. I want to... Do you ever go to San Francisco and see the sea lions on the wharf there and they're all sort of in a heap on top of each other, even when it's hot, 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 and they're covered in blubber? You're like, why are they all lying next to each other? Thigmotaxis, they like to be touching each other. And I like what happens here is the walruses say to each other, I'd like to be touching you. Oh, and you too, primate that happens to be sitting in my cage. So basically you have a lap full of baby walruses. Thigmotaxis would be a innate reinforcer. So these are the biologically significant needs, as opposed to the ones you learn. They're secondary. If primary reinforcers are primal, innate, primary, Ones that are one step removed from that are secondary. Secondary reinforcers, conditioned, built up over time, or artificial. Okay? The word relationship comes up a lot in terms of when you're judging if something is a reinforcer. So let's just a couple of tips on reinforcement. And there's a picture of my sick dog. Oh my goodness, that's hard. So relationship of the trainer and the trainee is a result of their cumulative reinforcement history. So where scientists, I'm thinking of Morten Engveld, the wonderful trainer from Norway, talking at the Clicker Expo at the panel discussion. When someone brings up the word relationship, he gets this face. He goes, like, you know, you don't talk to a scientist about relationship. But I think that's maybe a little strict. And so for me, and many of you also, probably look at that word relationship between the trainer and the trainee as being the sum total of all the reinforcements they've exchanged over their history together. And it allows the animal to develop certain expectancies. So what's nice about a trainee, an animal you have a long-term relationship with, is you can become predictable in a way to the dog. So the dog can have expectancies and feel safe in training with you. The effectiveness of any secondary reinforcer must be established by each trainer. So if we took the protocol that Sue Ann and I were doing and we carried it further and she did more of those repetitions so that Sarah sensed your hand touch on her shoulder to be a reinforcer, it in no way implies that me touching her shoulder is going to be a reinforcer. So when you're training up secondary reinforcers, I don't think they're easily transitioned to another trainer without that trainer putting in some effort to build it up. In fact, there's an article on my website that talks about we'd like our dogs to become gamblers. I want my dog to be in it just like my relative sitting at the slot machine, always knowing the next one will work. The next time will work. That's exactly the attitude I want from a dog. If I don't reinforce you this time, it's going to be the next time, honey. And if the dog can predict it all, your pattern, humans suck at being random. Did you hear that part of Jonah Lehrer's talk? He had a little thing about human brains can't handle randomness. We're pattern seekers. We want to find meaning and pattern in everything. So if you have humans try to generate randomness, we don't do it very well. So I love that most trainers fall into patterns of reinforcement, but the more that you can say, I want to become unpredictable in my reinforcement over time, the better you're going to be. Just quickly look at the graph for no reason other than this line of performance here. This is variable ratio, fixed ratio, variable interval, fixed interval. Picture rats in scanner boxes pressing levers. This is the number of responses over time. Just looking at that as quickly as I'm going to let you, you can see the best rate of performance is variable ratio. The slot machine one, let's pick that one. I think some of it has to do with the animal's experience with clicker training too, especially when you're talking about where does the treat go after you've clicked. I think for dogs that really understand that click is a marker signal, or dolphins or whales, you have a little bit more freedom about where that treat gets fed. I feel like the more clicker savvy the animal, you have more options about how you place that treat.